Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. In a quick video today, I'm going to be replicating the same flower arrangement I did a couple of days ago for the breast cancer research blog hop, but I'm going to be using my Distress Oxide inks. So here is the Courage set by Ellen Hudson, and I'm also using some stitched rectangles by Simon Says Stamp. So here are the Distress Oxide inks I'm going to be using. I've got Worn Lipstick, Wilted Violet, Peeled Paint, and I've also thrown in some Stampin' Up! Whisper White Craft inks, just some pigment ink. The Distress Oxide inks stamp off beautifully, so I can get two different shades of worn lipstick by stamping off. So I'm going to stamp off for my first layer of this flower. You can see how great the second image looks. I'm going to stamp 3 of these onto some Stampin' Up! Crumb Cake cardstock. And then for my next layer, I'm going to be using white. My stamp is a little stained and it's kind of hard to see with the crumb cake and the pink, so I'm going to use my Stamp-A-Majig, and this really allows me to line up the images perfectly. And these images are really easy to line up. You can just follow the instructions on the stamp packaging. Alright, so I'm going to ink this up with some Stampin' Up! White ink, which is my favorite white ink, by the way. I'll link off to my ink review for white ink, so you can check that out if you haven't already. And so I'm going to stamp this on all 3 flowers, and then for my third layer, I'm going to use just worn lipstick straight up, so I'm not going to stamp off. So you can see how I get a darker image. Now, if I didn't have that white underneath, I would get an even darker image. So you can get multiple images with just one of these Distress Oxide ink colors. For the next set of flowers, this is the smaller rose, I'm going to stamp off my Wilted Violet. This stamp only has 2 layers to it, so my first layer is going to be stamped off and my second layer is going to be direct Wilted Violet. And so I'm going to stamp the middle one first and then the 2 around the edge, and it is a little bit of a tight squeeze, but it all fits in there. For my second layer, it's just going to be direct Wilted Violet. I love when you can do one ink pad for multi-layer stamps because it makes it so much easier to match the colors because you're using the exact same color. Alright, so my next step is to do the leaves on the edges, and I'm using peeled paint for this, and I've created some masks out of Post-its. And I've covered the big flower and the little flower. I'm going to stamp off for the longer stem, which is going to be in the back. And then I have this smaller stem. I'm not going to stamp off. I'm just going to stamp directly onto the paper each time. You can see how you get 2 different shades of the peeled paint. And this is on crumb cake cardstock. So if you were to do it on white, it would be even brighter. And you would get just 2 different shades of that same color. Such a great way to use this Distress Oxide ink. Okay, so I just moved that small flower mask to the bottom, to the other side, and I'm going to just repeat this process, and I'll have 2 on the front, and I'm leaning 1 to the left and then 1 to the right. And then I'll move those masks to the other side and complete the other 2 parts of the stems. And then I'll remove my mask, and you can see how beautiful these flowers are really starting to look. So there is a small set of dots for the inside of the small rose, and I'm going to use my peeled paint directly to the paper randomly, and then after I do that a few times and kind of fill in some of the area, I'm going to stamp off with the peeled paint. So I get 2 different colors of this green in between, and I just didn't want all that crumb cake showing between the flowers, and it really makes a difference when you fill that area. I'm going to add some contrast to these flowers by using some Hero Arts black ink in the middle. And there's 2 different sets of the middles, one for the small roses and one for the large roses. Now watch as I do this middle one on the bottom. I don't know how this happened. Somehow it slipped and it kind of dropped a little bit in my hands, and so I ended up stamping it off to the side. Then I stamped it again in the middle. So now I have 2 sets of dots on that bottom flower. And I was trying to figure out what to do. I thought maybe I might be able to sand it a little bit. I used the corner of my sanding block, but that wasn't working, and it was black, so there's really not a whole lot I could do. So I decided to just move along and continue the card because I'm way too far along to start over. So I used the larger set of dots, finish up those pink flowers, and then I added a few white gel pen dots in the middle for even more contrast. I think after adding the white gel pen, that bottom flower looked a little bit better and it didn't bother me as much. I guess another thing I could have done is stamp it again on a different piece of paper and then put it on top. And then I could have done the same thing on the one above just to even it out. But anyway, I just left it. Now I'm going to cut a rectangle around my flowers. And then I have a piece of 4 by 5 1/4 cardstock. This is just Nina Solar White, and I cut it again. I'm going to inlay these because I have stitching on the inside and the outside, and it looks really nice. So I'm going to flip them over and use some surgical tape to adhere them together. And you really don't need a whole lot. You don't have to cover the whole area. Just the corners are probably the most important. And then I'm just going to cover the back with 3 long pieces of Scotch foam tape, and I'll adhere this to my A2 size Nina Solar White card base, so I have an 1/8 of an inch mat all the way around with a white on white, and it looks really kind of classy and elegant this way. Now, I decided not to put a sentiment on here because it just looks so pretty without one. I think I just might use it as a plain note card like a piece of stationery. So anyway, that is the card for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.